Welcome to Marked Out Radio. I'm Sean.
And I'm Dana.
And we are heading into con season. End of September, early October. This is the time when the big cons really start appearing one after the other. Typically every weekend, we're off doing something. So before the con season gets into full swing, we have a couple interesting things to talk about this week. So did you see, Dana, what's going on social media regarding the Paris Hilton CD and vinyl autographs that she was selling?
I heard bits and pieces, and it didn't seem like a very good thing for collectors, that's for sure.
No, what's so funny is, it's funny, once you're in like this collector space, 80% of the ads that I get served on Facebook or Instagram or whatever are autograph based or celebrity based in some way, even the stuff that I'm not interested in even remotely, which is kind of annoying, but it's kind of funny. And so yes, I have been getting ads for Paris Hilton's album for weeks at a time of showing her signing stacks and stacks of CDs and vinyls. I'm part of it. I'm thinking to myself, who is buying all of this Paris Hilton music? It's kind of unfathomable, but I gave it the benefit of the doubt. And I saw it appearing multiple times on social media that everything that was coming back from these signings was autopenned. So do you want to explain what an autopen is?
An autopen, it's basically like a machine that replicates someone's signature a million times over. I'm not even sure of the actual nuts and bolts of how it like scans or picks up the stroke, but it gets like the actual stroke and it'll put a signature on anything as many times as you want.
So more or less, there's like a couple different ways that the machines work. The simple ones, the person takes the pen or takes the device, they sign once with it, and then the machine remembers how they did that and just replicates it. Then there are other ones that are a little more sophisticated that can trace over something that was already signed and then use that to replicate it. But if you are someone who has a little bit of knowledge about how ink works and how autographs work and how the ink goes onto the paper, there are telltale signs for identifying when something is auto-penned. And so auto-pen is tricky because it is a real signature in the sense that it's not a forgery. It doesn't look like it's not signed by a different person. It's not a fake. It's fake, but it doesn't look fake unless you know what to look for. So auto pens, they have a certain, they're different flow in terms of, people when they hold a pen, the amount of pressure they put down on the paper changes naturally with the tremors of their muscles in their fingers or the grip of the pen, little subtle things like that. And auto pens have a consistent pressure. Auto pens, when the machine is working, it puts down a heavy mark at the beginning and at the end of the autograph when the pen presses against the paper. People don't tend to do that always, although I've experienced, like Leonard Whiting certainly did heavy pressure on the posters and stuff. But there are like ways sort of telling. But it's remarkable how someone who is basically, let's be honest, Paris Hilton's music is not lighting the world on fire.
Not at all.
No, and so the only reason why anyone would have to want to buy this thing is because if you're a collector and you want Paris Hilton's signature. I believe the reason why they're doing this is because they're rebooting that show, The Simple Life. Did you hear that?
I didn't.
Yeah, they are. That was one of the first big mainstream reality shows back in, I guess it was the late 90s, early 2000s, and kind of made her a household name.
Yeah, that was a trailblazer.
Absolutely. And in advance of that, she's pushing hard that on this album. But let's be honest, people are buying the album to get the signature, and they're advertising heavily that these are being signed, and then inexplicably they're sending out fakes. So the way these things work is the celebrity will sign some, maybe 50, maybe 100, maybe 500, whatever the number is. And then all the rest will be auto pens. And so when you buy, it's kind of a luck of the draw situation. And what's really insidious about auto pens is that the average person is not going to be able to really know the difference or tell the difference. And so they'll buy it and always think it's real, and it looks real to them, and they bought it directly from, it's not like they're buying it from some shady person on Etsy or something. They're buying it from the record company or from the celebrity themselves, usually through a sponsored advertisement. And
Yeah,
so
it seems safe.
And the worst part about it is they're really targeting the diehard fans of that person. You know, the dealers who stalk Paris Hilton in the street and get her to sign 20 things outside the hotel, they're selling real stuff. Meanwhile, her fans are buying the stuff from off her website or buying the fake stuff. So
It's crazy.
And there's been so many instances, you know, historically buying CDs or signed CDs or signed vinyls directly from the artist or the musician or the celebrity or whoever was generally safe. I'm not gonna say always safe, because there's always been shenanigans. You know, Bob Dylan's infamous thing where he was selling books that were like $1,500 that were autopen, just mind-numbing stuff. But by and large, that historically has been a pretty reliable, safe way of buying autographs. And now we're starting to see more and more and more and more celebrities who are selling either auto-penned or even secretarial, they call it, signatures. So it's kind of become no man's land out there for buying things, because even sources that should be kind of on paper pretty safe are now pretty unsafe to trust. So and you know, there's certain, like we've been talking about in other episodes, there are certain items that are becoming more and more and more in demand being signed. Now, vinyl records they're one of those things where vinyl records command a premium if they're signed. A signed CD, not really worth anything. You'll find that if you want to buy a signed, unless it's a very, very rare or very, very unique kind of signed CD. So I know, for example, you know, Linkin Park, the band, they're in the news lately because they're reforming after their lead singer had passed away a couple of years ago. They're reforming with a new lead singer, this woman, and I forget her name, but I don't follow them, but I saw the news story, and it was kind of a big deal. And so their autograph for their original band, their original lineup on their original CDs has spiked in interest and value. And so I've seen like signed CDs from Linkin Park's major releases selling between $1,200 and $1,800.
Then those Taylor Swift CDs were pretty valuable. You played that much better than I did.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, you know, Taylor Swift during COVID was trying to continue the ball rolling as far as selling her stuff. So she was doing these releases of signed CDs all during 2021, 2022, 2023. And there were a million of these things in the stores. And then all of a sudden the supply dried up. And you can, I made a couple $1,000 selling Taylor Swift CDs that I had bought for $12 or $13 each, that I had saved, and I was selling them for a couple $100 a piece. And I was selling those locally on Facebook Marketplace to, like, you know, basically young Taylor Swift fans who were very happy to buy them. It wasn't like eBay collectors or anything. These were like young girls who were very happy to buy these things. So I guess everyone won. Yeah. Maybe their parents didn't win because they were shelling out money, but
the only one that didn't win was me, because in this scenario, I was the mark promoter that I make fun of on a daily basis. That when they buy something and then sell it at like cost, that was me. I bought maybe 4 or 5 of these CDs, and I gave it a couple of months. And like Sean said, the market was flooded. They kept coming. They kept coming. They kept coming. I am like the furthest thing from a Swiftie, so I figured, let me get rid of these things while I can get my money back. Big mistake. I got my money back, but then I got to watch Sean make all this money. Meanwhile, I just got my $15 back per CD.
Yeah, I mean, if you had asked my opinion, I would have told you to hold, because
it was bad idea.
Taylor Swift, like her or don't like her, is the biggest celebrity on the planet, and so anytime you have the literal biggest star in the world, I don't care what the supply is. The demand is infinite. And so you just hold those things. And let's put it this way. The demand for Taylor Swift will always far outstrip the demand for Paris Hilton. And so
just by a small margin.
Yeah. And so just by a whole, but anytime, anything you come across of Taylor Swift, just hold it, because there's the demand there is almost infinite. And you talking about anyone who's like that, who's like the biggest stars in the world. I mean, obviously, much less plentiful, but there was a time when like Beyonce stuff was relatively gettable, and now, I mean,
Good
it's
luck,
just
yeah.
it's a fortune. Even for it actually kills me because a couple of years ago, I remember someone was blowing out signed Destiny's Child CDs. They had a whole bunch because they used to do appearances back in the day. There wasn't a ton of value attached. And so I remember they were blowing out the CDs for like 200 or 250 a piece. And I remember at the time going, it's a lot of cash to lay out. Beyonce's still young; she's gonna be around for a while. And now I can't even imagine what those CDs go for. Easily north of $1,000, probably closer to 2,000, all day long. And that's one of those things that you're like, and again, buying stuff that was mass produced, mass signed stuff used to be a safe bet, and now it just isn't. And so it was Paris Hilton. Now there was a big Ozzy Osbourne thing where he was sending out his people, his label was sending out fake stuff. I remember when Cardi B first got big, they were doing this thing, these signed things by Cardi B. Those were all fake. That I bought a whole stack of those and had to deal with trying to return them because they were all fake. They were
fake. I know they were fake Nicki Minaj's. I remember that.
Yep. Fake Nicki Minaj, fake Cardi B. Yep.
Super confusing. I remember John Bon Jovi. He had those posters they were selling. Those were all good.
I actually bought his CD a couple of years ago that were all good, and then the most recent batch is all bad.
Bad. I guess he hated, because usually, this actually will segue into our next segment pretty well. Usually there's like the more easy to sign stuff that you actually get like CD booklets are easy. Vinyls, on the other hand, is getting a little trickier to find actual signed vinyls on like websites because they don't want to, actually sign the full vinyl. It's big, it's bulky, it's just harder to deal with. I guess, he signed the posters, Bon Jovi. They were good. Now he couldn't do CDs. It's crazy.
It's the whole vinyl thing is blowing up in such an interesting way because, I guess like anything else, the signed vinyl looks way cooler than any of these posters or any of these CDs. There's something really, it's hard to articulate, this kind of authenticity to the vinyl. It's a piece of art. It's more than just this little scrap of paper, basically. And so I have a signed vinyl collection. I've actually had some pretty rare pieces come through that I've gotten signed myself over the years, and some I've sold through, but I really like the look of a signed vinyl. But what the trend is now, there's a couple things. So I know, like, I think it was Katy Perry or something. She had a new vinyl come through, but if you bought the signed vinyl, you would not get the vinyl signed. You would get a vinyl unsigned, and then you get this tiny little, it's smaller than a CD cover, basically, this tiny little scrap of paper that was signed. And a lot of artists have started to do that, where you buy the signed vinyl from them and you get like they call it a signed lithograph, but it's usually like a 5-inch by 5-inch or 4-inch by 4-inch little piece of paper.
Yeah. Recently, LL Cool J did that exact same thing. The vinyls that were signed through his website, he just inserted like a signed. It was a little bigger than that. It's actually a nice picture. It has a nice authentic signature, but that's all it is. It's a signed like 5x7 photograph that's inside the vinyl. He didn't actually sign the covers.
Yeah, and because I had bought signed vinyls from The Offspring, the band. I bought signed vinyls. They were the big, what their label was doing. They would send a sealed vinyl copy, and then they would send an additional empty vinyl cover that was signed, which is kind of cool, Yeah. Because then in theory, you could just swap it out. You can keep there's a whole different, whatever you want to do. And some had started doing that, but that's a lot more expensive for the label, obviously. So they go with this. They started with the lithographs. A lot of them were doing the lithographs. I mean, to be honest, I think calling it a lithograph is actually a little bit. That's a little bit much.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be hanging in some museum somewhere. It's just a inexpensive print. I think that's giving it a little too much value.
Yeah, poster more or less. So yeah, I mean, talking about LL, you had said that I mean, it's kind of funny. Every time there's an LL Cool J signing, you conjure up some reason to go, even though you've gone to a bunch of them already. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, basically my like LL Cool J fandom is like a 2011 like Jay Ryan, CM Showstopper, Stephen Amell thing. Like it's just I just go
That
anywhere
is such a, by
LL
the way,
is.
time out.
I'm
That
gonna
is such
go.
an that is such an obscure inside baseball reference. Like two people on earth besides you and me would even understand that. Yeah, sorry.
And one of them is CM Showstopper.
Probably.
Um, but yeah, he did a couple of signings for this new album. There was one in the city, which I didn't. It was like a Friday. I would have to go in right after work and basically just get on the end of the line. I didn't feel like doing it. And for people that are in like the New York area, there is a record store on Long Island. It's called Looney Tunes. They typically whoever's appearing in New York City anywhere promoting an album usually will end up at Looney Tunes, or at least that's always my hope. So I held out hope. I was waiting to see if Looney Tunes would add it, and they did. But interestingly enough, they did not have an option for a vinyl, which they used to always have that option. You pay one price for a CD, one price for a vinyl.
Yeah, that's kind of how the way it's been for a while, For a long time, artists who were putting out a vinyl would you offer both. And the vinyl was, and the way these CD stores, the way these record stores, they call themselves record stores, the way they make money on these signings is they charge full retail for these CDs or vinyl. So, for example, if you go to buy a CD at Walmart, the first week it came out, it's like $12, something like that. But full retail on these things is like $18 or $19.
Yeah, you're paying like 21 and change with tax. It's
yeah,
crazy.
so the vinyls, they're even crazier. You may pay $20 at Walmart or $18 at Walmart for the vinyl, whereas it's $37 or $38 full retail. So they are making money selling these things. And what usually, so you go and I always get the vinyl. I never get the CD. So you go and you buy the vinyl, they sign it, everyone's happy. Yeah, but what started? But LL was a little bit of an interesting circumstance.
Yeah, because it just seemed weird. So what I did, because I'm such a big LL Cool J fan, I bought the CD ticket. So I had my CD, and it just so happened like 2 days before the signing, I popped into the record store, figuring, let me see what kind of LL Cool J vinyl I could acquire that I could try to get signed as like an extra. Because LL Cool J at these signings will typically sign 1 to 2 extra items, meaning if you bring something from home, another CD, another album, a printed photo, whatever, he'll sign 1 or 2 extras. That's typically how he does. So when I walked into the record store, what do I find? A small stack of the new album in vinyl. On the website, they kind of made it sound like, and on the Facebook page, that they couldn't get it. They couldn't get them in stock in time. They were back ordered. I forget exactly what they said, but it was to that, tone.
It was heavily implied they weren't available.
Yeah. So I grabbed one of the new album vinyl off the rack, and I went up to the register and I asked the girl. I said, I already pre-ordered my ticket for the LL Cool J meet and greet, but you didn't have vinyls available. Can I buy this vinyl right now and get it signed on Monday? And she went in the back. She asked the owner, and the owner said, yes, if you buy it here and you want to swap it out, you can, but you can't return the CD. You have to keep the CD, even though you can't get it signed. You got to pick one, but you got to keep the CD, which I get. It's a smart way to make nearly $60 instead of 20 and change or 30 and change, depending on which one you're buying.
It's just so funny, these retailers like quibbling over nickels and dimes to make a sale. But I guess in retail, you gotta, every sale counts.
Yeah, you make it where you can. And I came home and I remember I texted you and I made a prediction. And again, it was like I was Miss Cleo. I said, I guarantee you that stack of vinyls they have is going to disappear into the back. And after the signing, they will have them for sale on their website, signed at a premium. And Sean, was I right?
I mean, I think seconds after the signing was over, those things appear on the website at a premium.
Yep. And they sold out. Yeah. So, I mean, good for them. They made their money. But now it's a thing where the next event they have, I don't know if I can get a vinyl. I might be stuck with a CD.
It's funny because, like, it really does violate the spirit of that kind of signing, where the purpose of bringing a person into the store is to drive walk-up business to that store. That's literally why these signings are happening. You buy the CD or you buy whatever it is in the store, you pay full retail, whatever you deal, and then you're standing in line. That store in particular, the way they do the lines weave up and down throughout the racks in the store, so you can't go through that store without seeing all of their other merchandise they have for sale. So the idea that there's going to be some degree of impulse shopping. You see things, you grab them off the shelf, you buy. That's the reason why they have these signings. It's to draw attention to their store. They have relationships with the artists and the labels, so they get these signings. They're not paying. Just a store like Looney Tunes doesn't have to pay LL Cool J for him to come to that store. It is purely a reciprocity agreement. It's a quid pro quo. He comes in, they agree to feature, they agree with his label to feature his stuff. So it's not costing them anything to have him in. It's not like, oh, they're trying to make their money back. That's not what's happening here.
No.
They are just taking product off the shelf that should have been available beforehand in order to hold it back, not sell it in store, but to sell it online as a premium. And again, I understand why they do it. These independent retailers are struggling competing with online stores, but it's scummy in the sense that it's to me, it's violating the intent of a signing like that, which is to draw eyeballs into their physical location. And that's why, and you went to their physical location, and other people went to the physical location. They would have purchased the vinyls there. They still would have made money on those vinyls, selling them at full retail. And instead they pulled them and held them back and sold them afterwards.
After the signing, when I walked out in like the line, because I was top 10 on that line just by sheer, like I went there straight after work. So I was on the front end of the line. When I walked out after having my vinyl signed, you would have thought I had a Tickle Me Elmo doll in like 1996, whatever year that was. That it was like
people went crazy.
Thing. Yeah, wait, oh my God, a vinyl. Where'd you get it? And everyone was flipping out. They would have sold hundreds of vinyls if they had them available.
Yeah, I think that's the funny thing is that these things are in demand. A lot of times, I hate to say it, and obviously for these kinds of retailers, competing with the fact that most music is digital and no one wants to buy the physical copies anyway, and you can go to Walmart or Target and get them half the price. Like there's lots of ways that these retailers are disadvantaged, but they're also, one of the reasons why mom and pop retailers are failing is because the people who run them are just not that bright and don't really have maybe they were bright, maybe they were good back in the day, but their current strategies aren't taking into consideration the fact that if they had a case of vinyl, they would have sold through, and they would have made money. They would have made money that way. And then again, there might have been some kind of agreement with the label, X number of CDs, X number of vinyls, or they buy their stuff through a distributor, not even through the label, and so it's possible there's some kind of distribution thing, X number of vinyls, X number of CDs, whatever. That's sometimes a thing in the music business. But to order an extra case of vinyls to sell to the fans, they would have sold through. Everyone would have been happy. Instead, they had a small number. Those were not sold to the public. And then, do you remember what the cost was of the signed ones on the website?
Believe it was $40 before shipping, which honestly was probably $10 over what they would have charged for it. Maybe less. Or was it 50? I think it was 40.
I mean, yeah, because I want to say that's not even that much of a markup, to be honest.
No, it really wasn't. I texted you. I'm like, should I buy like 10 of these? And then I knew it would be one of those things where it would probably be like $15 shipping on each one, no matter how many you bought. And the shipping would just make the margins terrible. And by the time I negotiated a store pickup on them, someone else would have bought them all. So there was no chance for that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that you just shake your head that, there was no reason to do that. Just it actually kind of engenders a little ill will with the people who are loyal to actually show up at the store to see those things sold on the website for a couple dollars more. Bookends in New Jersey started doing that nonsense too, where they would claim to be sold out of certain books, hold a couple back, and then try and throw them up on the website at a markup months later. It's just, I don't know. It's one of those things. I think it's like penny wise, pound foolish. You make a couple of dollars, you'll make a couple of bucks, down the line, on a quote unquote premium item, but then you lose out potentially on a customer who is super excited to go to your store for indefinitely into the future. But those are marketing questions and they're complicated, but it is kind of interesting. Speaking of marketing, by the way, this is a hell of a segue. If you're shopping for autographs, please check out www.markedoutcollectibles.com. You can check out our eBay store, which is a little bit different than it used to be. We have a link in the show notes. The eBay store is now Marked Out Collectibles, all one word, and the link will be in the show notes, the updated link. And we've gotten rid of our sister store, so everything is merged into the main Marked Out Collectibles eBay store, which will hopefully streamline things a little bit. To contact us for any reason, you are super excited to get emails, you can email us at markedoutcollectibles.com. You can join the official Marked Out Collectibles Facebook group, or you can leave us comments on YouTube. So this is kind of a fun segue from what we were just talking about. It's actually funny. While we are speaking right now, Dana just texted me to remind me that we are going to be reading some listener emails on the air. That was something that we promised to do, and I'm actually super excited about doing it.
Yes, me too.
So we did get an email. We'll do this first, I guess, before we launch into the meat of the topic. And so this comes from Martin. He is a listener from Chile, actually. And I think we're actually going to meet up with him at Rhode Island, right?
Yeah, we're going to see him up there,
which will be fun. So, so he's a big wrestling collector, and he had an interesting question about, what to do when you're looking to meet someone who cancel their appearances, or, for lack of a better word, die in advance of their appearances, and you miss out. So he wrote, there are two wrestlers that I always wanted to meet, but their cancellations and passing just months later took the opportunity away from me. The first one was Scott Hall. I bought my ticket for the big event in 2021. I attended the event in my NWO shirt to take some pictures with Hall and Nash. I was able to meet Nash, but Hall canceled his appearance at the last minute for reasons that were never revealed, and he passed away 4 months later. And then once again, Sid Vicious, who we just talked about recently, he was supposed to appear at WrestleCon in Philadelphia this year, but Sid no-showed that event. He just didn't get on the plane. As we joked about that is something that Sid was known for doing. And Sid just passed away 2 weeks ago now, again, 4 months after that appearance. And so, just like Scott Hall, he was out of luck. And so Martine asks us, has this happened to us, that a guest who we wanted to meet canceled and then died without being able to meet them? He knows it's not that positive, but it's something in this hobby we always joke about it in a darkly humorous way. Dana and I joke about this all the time. So, do you have any people who you were putting off, or maybe there was a cancellation, you didn't get to meet them, and then they died?
Let's see. The one that comes to mind for me, and it actually was a happy ending in the end, Bobby Heenan. If you remember back when Bobby Heenan was with us and doing appearances, he canceled a bunch, and that wasn't like a negative thing. He had genuine like health issues, and I remember I would think, oh, finally I'm going to meet Bobby Heenan, and then he'd cancel, and I was sure he was going to just die before I got him, and I ended up getting him finally. He did. Like, I think I met him once or twice. But that was one that I definitely know that feeling. I can't recall of anyone that canceled and then died. Probably so Robert Patrick. If he asked me in a couple of months or a couple of years, he'll be the one I'll kick myself for.
Disclaimer: Robert Patrick is still alive. Dana's just being morbid. Actually, for me, it was Carrie Fisher. So the first time I met Carrie Fisher was years ago, and it was at a crazy, hectic New York Comic-Con, and I only got one thing signed, and I had a whole bunch of other things, but I said, you know what? She'll be around. She's always around. She always does cons. And then in the months leading up to her death, I believe she canceled a couple of appearances,
Yes.
and there was a bunch of appearances that got canceled. And I was thinking, all right, I'm definitely gonna get Carrie. Financially, I was more stable. I want to get Carrie the next time she came around, and then she died suddenly, and it was like, and that was the noise I just made, the shock noise, because
I thought that
Carrie
was the
Fisher.
Carrie Fisher dying noise.
No, it was not. That was me getting upset because
Okay.
I had this stuff put to the side. I mean, Carrie Fisher, when we got her, was a $60 autograph. That was it. She'd made so many appearances. She was common. Then it was like, all right, I'll get her next time. I'll get her around. I'll get her around. I'll get her around.
You have the photo up?
I do. I have the photo up with her and her dog.
Yeah, same.
But anyway, Carrie Fisher was a $60 autograph all day long, and so it was one of those things where you're like, I don't need to rush because no one anticipates that these people are just going to die. And then that happened for me, so that was a big deal. Wrestler wise, I had more stuff for Warrior that I was holding, and then Warrior died because we were all expecting Warrior to go on a huge con run after the Hall of Fame thing, right?
I guess Randy Savage, he had done that video game commercial. It seemed like he was finally like starting to defrost a little bit.
Yeah, but he hadn't canceled anything. He just never had done anything. And Randy Savage will always be like my white whale. Randy Savage is a tough one. It's a tough one even to explain because we all assumed he would be impossible, but we all had assumed he would be impossible, but wink, wink, maybe not, kind of thing. Yeah. And then it turns out no, actually he was, because he just died suddenly. I would have liked to have had access to Roddy Piper in a more modern context, knowing how my collecting evolved. And I had met Piper a bunch of times, but I also passed on him a bunch of times. Knowing
imagine a bulk, a private with Roddy Piper. That would have been really sick.
Talking about wrestlers and dying and stuff is you kind of shake your head because there's so many opportunities to meet all these guys because so many of them were accessible. In fact, you posted a thing on the marketplace the other day of a con from '93. It was really funny actually because you had Hawk and Animal on there, you had Kerry Von Erich on there, and it's funny. It's funny because I imagine there were people who passed on that show. So they'll be around, and that was I believe someone commented that was the week that Kerry died, right?
I believe that's what they said, and I bet you there were people complaining because a photo op was $10 for each of the Road Warriors, so it was the big number of $20 for the group shot with Hawk and Animal, and I bet you back in '93 there were people saying, "Oh, well, these should be free. What do I gotta pay for each one?"
Well, keep in mind though, you were paying for was not the photo op. You were paying for the Polaroid.
True, that is true.
Which is Polaroids had a cost attached to them, and you don't receive something physical with that. So that's I think it's a little bit different from today, where it's digital. But the point stands. People were. I don't think too many people were expecting free Polaroids. But in any
Ultimate
case,
Warrior was $12.
Oh, big money spend. I think $7 for an autograph. Right? It's kind of funny. I wonder what happened in that scenario, though, because I don't think bulks happened back then at all. No, but
if you would have walked up with 100 pieces, I wonder how that would have.
Right, I'm wondering what they would do. Like, would Warrior be willing to sit down and do 100 pieces for $700? Would he want to charge you more? Would he cut you a rate? I'm really curious because I don't even look. I'm sitting here talking a little bit out my ass, saying, "Oh, it didn't happen back then," because for all we know, it might have. I don't have firsthand knowledge of that. I was a kid in '93. I was 13 years old, so I don't have a clue what was happening. But it's interesting to think about, like how the market evolved to the place where it is now, where intuitively you see someone enter the market, someone who starts doing signings for the first time, and all of a sudden now you're like, all right, how can we do privates with them? How can we do bulks with them? How can we find a way to get them accessibility to the public? And some of these people are difficult. I think what's interesting because Martine brings up two very, very difficult wrestlers to work with. Scott Hall was, I mean, look, the fans love Scott Hall. He's a hilarious guy. He's highly intelligent, great wrestler, just someone who, is one of those people who has the it factor, And Scott Hall also, though, for a lot of his run when he would do like con appearances, would show up very, very intoxicated. He would be belligerent with the promoters. He would, in some cases, sexually harass female fans. Right? We have firsthand accounts. I mean, there are plenty of people who will talk about it, how he did stuff at shows that was very unpleasant to people.
Yeah.
And this is not me speaking ill of the dead. This is simply a fact that we all witnessed, that we were all party to. Where he was a very, very, very difficult person to work with, because he was a non-functioning alcoholic. Basically, you have functioning alcoholics, you have non-functioning. He was a non-functioning alcoholic. He was a mess when he would come to a lot of these appearances, and Sid on the other hand. So for Scott Hall to cancel, I know for the fans are like that's so frustrating, and I totally get why it's frustrating. But from the promoter's perspective, I'm sure it was not entirely uncommon for Scott Hall to cancel, because there were plenty of appearances where he showed up where he probably shouldn't have. Let's put it like that.
There's probably some appearances they wish he would have canceled.
I think that's true. And then Sid was the opposite end of the coin, where, I mean, they would have loved to. Once Sid got in the building, he was relatively, he would be grumpy and stuff, but relatively fine to work with. But it was totally unpredictable when Sid would show up. Sid would, you would say yes to an appearance, and then you'd buy him a plane ticket. You'd have someone waiting at the airport for him to come in, and then he would just never get on the plane. And it was I remember enough promoters, and it was great because a bunch of promoters would always consider themselves like the Sid whisperers, like those who think they knew the magic trick of getting Sid to appear. And the truth of it is, all of them, even the ones who had some success with Sid sometimes, all of them were burned by Sid at one time or another. All of them.
Yeah. You were always at the mercy of Sid's, whatever, his whims, his impulses, whatever he felt like doing at the time. Yeah.
So for us as fans, it's super annoying when someone cancels and then ultimately dies. But those are two. It is not. I mean, with Sid, he had cancer. He didn't let anyone know publicly. So his no showing and his death were not related really in any way. With Scott Hall, I'm pretty sure that there was a pretty direct connection between his cancellation of WrestleCon and his death. Because I believe I heard the story from Kevin Nash that the Scott by that point had already fallen off the wagon again, was drinking pretty regularly. He was self-medicating for injuries with alcohol and making appearances for him. Because, keep in mind, being an alcoholic, a severe alcoholic in your mid-50s is very, very different from being a severe alcoholic in your mid-30s or early 40s in terms of what your body can physically do. And so you start slowing down to the point where you start getting sick to the point where you can't do much. And I think that's where he was at, towards the end. So it's one of those things that it's terrible to think about the fact that, and we as collectors, and this is part of like the collecting mentality. It's hard because we laugh about it, we joke about it, but it's like my mentality, as deranged as this sounds, when someone dies who I wanted to get or who I was trying to collect, I'd be like, there goes my chance. Oh yeah. With Randy Savage, that was my whole. There goes my chance. Like meeting Randy Savage, and it's if you think about it, you zoom out, it's demented. But
exactly.
That's who we are. So on that note,
the next time,
that was a pretty good question. So
it was a great question, Martin.
Keep them coming. We love getting emails and we love comments on YouTube and everything. So getting back to what we were talking about before, with Paris Hilton and the prevalence now of fakes in the marketplace, we do have in the collecting community a method for filtering out fakes, one that's pretty well accepted, but there's also a significant amount of controversy surrounding it, and it's called third party authentication. Sometimes people shorten it and they call it authentication, or sometimes they'll shorten it more and they'll call it getting an item stickered. And what it means is, basically, for those people who don't know, is you take your autograph and you bring it to one of these companies, and some of the major companies that do this are PSA, JSA, Beckett, ACOA, and SWAU has started emerging as a force in this market as well. And so you bring it to one of their booths at a con. They often have booths at a con, or you mail it in through their website, or sometimes they have, a lot of these companies will have appearances or events at like card stores or comic book stores where you can bring stuff in and have them looked at. And so basically what they'll do is they'll look at your item, they'll take a picture of it, and they'll compare the signatures. Well, they'll look at the signature and make sure that it's live ink, that it's not stamped on there. They will then compare it to what's called exemplars in their databases. So these companies will have databases of signatures from various celebrities. So they'll have like their short street version, their long con version, old variations from over the years, and they'll try to match the signature that's on your item, or at least they'll match properties from the signature on your item to properties from examples or in their database. And that's how they determine, they'll offer an opinion as to whether something is real or not real. And then they'll put a sticker with a serial number on your item, and that is kind of memorialized in their database that, in their opinion, that item is real. And so that has become pretty much the standard. Your items now, if you have signed items on eBay without a third party authentication, that's grounds for people being able to return them sometimes under certain circumstances. It's a pretty industry accepted thing. So let's Dana, let's talk about our experiences with TPA. What do you think about TPA? How do you feel about it? Do you use it? What's going on in your head?
Personally, as a collector, I have pretty little regard for it. I don't personally do anything of my own with a sticker. If it's something I'm keeping from a deal that we do, I always pull my stuff out, and then I get the, certain things, if we're selling them, we'll get them done. But for me personally, as a collector, I don't really put much stock into it. How about you?
So historically, I mean, keep in mind, as a wrestling collector, first of all, TPAs were not a thing until more or less COVID. It was not done on wrestling items because there was no money in wrestling autographs, so no one would bother. And then and for celebrity stuff, TPAs only really started emerging a little bit, maybe 2015, 2016-ish, because again, it wasn't that necessary. And so I would go to the horror cons and very Comic-Con and stuff, and I wouldn't bother with this stuff. I got it signed myself. I knew I was there. What do I need to get it done? But then what happened was, so as the values of these things increased, the horror and celebrity and wrestling autograph branches of the hobby started to mirror the sports branch. Pretty much all of the trends that we talk about on this show started in the sports world and then migrated over, which that's fair?
Very fair.
And so the sports collectors, because truthfully, the number of memorabilia, of non-sports memorabilia collectors who have collections that are worth in the 7 or 8 figures is relatively small. You have some people who collect like the historical documents and things like that. Those people's collections are worth a ton. But by and large, the mega collectors in our hobby are all sports people. They just are. That's where all the money is. And so as a result, all of the ways of protecting people's investments come from the sports world. That's just how it is. And so we're always kind of playing catch up. When we kind of see the trends that are emerging in the sports world, premium pricing on certain items originated in the sports world. Having items witnessed as they're being signed originated in the sports world, then later in the comics world. It have encapsulation was the comics world, then the sports world, then the rest of it. So a lot of these trends that are big originate there. And so in the beginning, it didn't even occur to me that was a thing. And then once I started selling my stuff, so when I first started, I went through like phases in collecting, and I had a massive wrestling collection between 2007 and 2012. And in 2012, I made the decision to sell off probably 95% of my wrestling collection. And this was all stuff that I had gotten done in person. And so I didn't understand third-party authentication systems. I didn't understand what was needed, what was what. So what I did was I printed out my own certificates of authenticity at home. And I wrote that they were signed. I got them signed myself at cons. This is my email address. This is how you can contact me if you have any questions about it. But I was attesting to their authenticity, and it's funny because now that was in 2012. Now, granted, that's 12 years ago. When you now, if you saw an item on eBay that had a homemade certificate of authenticity, what would you do?
Run far and wide.
Yeah, I mean that now you see homemade COAs and you head for the hills because almost 100% of them are fake. All of my stuff was real, but I didn't have the language. I didn't understand, and frankly, TPAs were just not that popular. They weren't that big.
The only two like esteemed vendors I can think of that do homemade COAs without any sort of pushback would be Bud Carson and Jack from the Wrestling Universe. And the reason they're able to do it, it goes without saying. They are legends of the highest order, and their word is, in my opinion, better than most anyone else's.
And to be clear, though, they're not evaluating the authenticity of stuff that was acquired by other people. They're just attesting that stuff was signed in their presence.
Correct.
So they're more like a first-party authenticator. And pretty much all of these, there are lots of first-party authenticators. High Spots does their own first-party authentication. There's this very large company, $7 a pop, who they sell signed Funko Pops. They have their own stickers that stuff was signed in their presence. ASI, Authentic Signings Inc., they do their own first-party stickers. Hulk Hogan in the Hulk Hogan Beach Shop does his own first-party sticker. There's a million. Robert Englund, if you buy stuff off his website, he has his own first-party stickers. It's pretty first-party stickers are pretty common. First-party stickers just means that something was signed in that person's presence or by that person. So all of the major third-party authenticators, JSA, PSA, Beckett, they also have what's called witnessing programs where it's a different kind of sticker they use that indicates that they were there. That's a little bit different from a third-party authenticator in the sense that there's no opinion needed for a witness signature because you saw it. So there's no, you don't have to attest to like, oh, it shares similarities with these exemplars. It doesn't have to do that because they saw it occur. Although
it's just a matter of do you trust the first party person saying that I got this done in my presence? If you trust that person, you're fine. If you don't, that's where it gets a little slippery. And what's interesting is most of these companies have had scandals of some form or another. There was an infamous scandal a few years ago where Beckett was supposed to be witnessing a private signing by, oh my God, I forgot his name. Ian McDermott, Gandalf, right? From Lord of the Rings. And they were supposed to have a first-party authenticator there, observing and witnessing the signing. And there were all kinds of logistical issues and all kinds of last-minute problems, quote-unquote. This is me giving air quotes in the air. And Beckett, very, very foolishly, to their extreme detriment, was unable to make the signing, and they gave a roll of their witness stickers to the promoter doing the signing. Well, this is a pretty infamous incident because, as it turns out, there was a fake Ian McDermott. And this sounds completely insane. There was a fake Ian McDermott, a dude who literally costumed himself to kind of look like Ian McDermott in the
proof shots was not really him, was a fake person signing fake autographs, and these were stickered with
Jeez, yeah.
Beckett witness stickers, not authentication, Beckett witness. It was the only moment that was like in this hobby, I think, that truly rocked people, because a roll of witness stickers, those are not supposed to get out there. And for a roll of witness stickers to get out into the wild means that it calls into question the authenticity of any witnessed thing, if those are Beckett's internal practices and controls. And it's sad because Beckett is a very, very, very oh my god. I realized the name was not Ian McDermott, it was Ian McKellen.
Oh, I was wondering. I thought that was a Star Wars guy, but then I figured, what the hell do I know?
Yeah, Ian McKellen. This is what happens when you record on a Sunday morning. Ian McKellen. Point still stands. It changes the whole calculus of the Ian McDermott. It was Emperor Palpatine, right?
I was gonna say he's forging Lord of the Rings autographs. I think you were
Ian
breaking
McKellen, Ian
news.
McDermott, two old men for crying out loud. Ian McKellen from Lord of the Rings. It was Ian McKellen. And if you could do some digging and find this, but Beckett never really took ownership for what they did, and they basically compromised the integrity of their entire witness program. Because how can you ever trust a Beckett witness sticker again if they're willing to give a roll of stickers to some dope who either A, was duped into having a fake Ian McKellen in his signing room, or B, orchestrated the whole thing and is a complete con artist. So no one looks good in that scenario.
No.
There's also an interesting thing going on right now, because the new trend in non-sports collectibles is encapsulation. So in sports, encapsulation has been a big trend for a while, and then it went to like Pokemon cards and everything, where if you have an encapsulated graded item, it's worth way, way more. And I actually hate the way encapsulated items look. I don't know how you feel.
I don't have any. I wouldn't say I hate how they look. It's just not something I do.
I just don't like the way they look. But anyway, PSA has started encapsulating Funko Pops and assessing the authenticity of their autographs. Well, scammers have recently discovered a way to either replicate or somehow mess with PSA encapsulations, and have started creating fake PSA encapsulated Funko Pops. So they're getting this incredible premium price for these very high-end, in theory, high-end pops that are actually fake. The autographs are fake. A lot of times the pops are counterfeit as well, and they're in these PSA encapsulated boxes as authentic autographs. And so that's a whole big fiasco right now that there's no real answer to. And what do you do? The answer could be to stay away from PSA. But the truth of it is it'll catch all of the groups eventually. Scammers' whole MO is trying to evade and get around what your security measures are. And the truth of it is, you don't know what new security measures to take until scammers have evaded your previous ones. And so eventually they will evade whatever the current ones are, and they'll figure out a way. So it was actually kind of funny, because a few weeks ago we talked about the Russell Crowe show that we went to, and we got the autographs. Something funny happened to me. And you had gone to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You were dying after the show. I was hanging out at the bar waiting, and some guy came over to me. Didn't really say much. He just said, "You mind if I take some pictures of your stuff?" And I'm like, "I don't care." And he took pictures of my stuff, and I said, "Oh, I work for JSA. I'm going to use these as exemplars." And so I kind of joked to him. I said, "We got any stickers in your pocket? Because I'll take free stickers then." Because JSA took pictures of my stuff to use in their database as exemplars of real Russell Crowe autographs, but they didn't sticker them for free. So it's just kind of funny to me,
That would have been nice, right?
It would have been nice. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to cost me $40 or more, $50 to get those things stickered. I'm going to try and hassle them to do it for free. But we've had interesting experiences. I mean, I would say of the major authenticators, we've probably used JSA the most.
For sure.
And I know I definitely have more of the experience than you do. with JSA. I've used it a lot at a lot of cons, and I also did a lot of our bulk stuff. But we did, the third-party authenticators are really interesting to work with, because if you're a regular customer of theirs and you have an account with them, your terms are different from if you don't, which that's fair.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, in terms of price, in terms of service level and quality, it's very interesting. So, like, for example, in working with JSA, it was because we had done we had a lot of Harry Potter street autographs on Funko Pops, not Puffs, that we still have some for sale. They look really cool, honestly. But street autographs, especially from someone like a Daniel Radcliffe who moves pretty quickly, you had to get some kind of third-party authentication in order to sell them. And so we went through JSA, through our normal contact at JSA, and they passed them pretty cool. I think, how many didn't pass? Two?
Two. Yeah, we have two that are not.
And so obviously we know they're all real, because we got them, they're in-person things done when Daniel Radcliffe was in New York City. So it's like we don't know that they're real, but the way
they all come from the same place.
Yeah, the way the guy explained it was there weren't enough qualities of these two autographs that matched exemplars in our database. And so it's kind of a funny way. They wouldn't say they were fake, because sometimes they will say these are fake. They didn't say that. They just said there's not enough in our database to confidently say they're real. And to be honest, those are our two sloppiest ones. So it makes sense that they were a little bit dodgy in doing so. In a way, getting those two back as unconfirmed, what it kind of does, that makes you, okay, so maybe there is some legitimacy to this process. Right? Because I mean, if JSA is willing to, we give JSA a lot of money. We have a pretty decent working relationship there. So for them to say, these don't have enough qualities, we can't pass them, to me gives me actually hope that people are looking instead of just stickering and taking money in this hobby.
Yeah, it kind of filled me with like a nice warm fuzzy feeling. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm too hard on the whole like institution, that they're actually looking that closely and having standards. Because
for me, prior to the two Harry Potters getting cannot be confirmed status, I had never had anything fail TPA, and I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of items go through, and nothing ever failed. So I started saying, they're all real because I got them all myself, right? But something just by chance or by a sloppy worker or something has to come back as a fail. I had assumed there was some degree of some margin of human error. And so when I never got anything come back as a fail, I was like, that's really strange. And I had used Beckett, I had used PSA, I had used JSA, I had used ACOA a little bit, and nothing had ever come through as a fail. I was like, huh. And then, when JSA said, we can't confirm these, I did have that feeling like, okay, maybe this is a legitimate process. And I do think, look, I've talked to a bunch of the JSA guys. I talked to the Beckett guys for a decent amount, gabbing with them at the con tables and stuff. They're all good guys. They're not doing this to be, they're not scamming anyone. But I think this is an interesting conversation to have in the hobby. You've heard of the scandal of the JSA tables at the cons in recent cons, right?
Yeah.
So, do you want to explain it, or should I?
Basically, there's been like the sentiment that when you have like the con guests and there's like the special rate to sticker the people that are at the cons, that some people, some vendors, some scam artists will slip in fakes. Like, let's say Patrick Stewart was at a convention, and you would say, well, I'm going to bring my 50 fake Patrick Stewarts, drop them on the table, and they'll just sticker them without looking. That was at least the belief or the fear people had, because he's here, it's a con signature, we know it's good, and fakes would get stickered that way.
Yeah, it happened. There was a pretty high volume consigner. And we have a consigner episode lined up for the future, but there's a pretty high profile consigner who was taking money to get consignments done for people at a con. I believe the headliner was Chris Evans. He was like the big headliner, and they had gotten what happened was the consigner was faking the autographs. He was faking the Chris Evans, because Chris Evans' autograph is nothing to write home about. He was faking the autographs, and then they were having them stickered at the JSA table. JSA wasn't looking at the autographs because they do that show special. If the person is at the show, it's $10 an item, and they were just doing $10. They weren't really checking, and a bunch of fake autographs from Chris Evans got stickered with JSA at these shows, and then it becomes a thing. And so in the community, there's kind of a mantra that's really important. If you're starting out as a collector, or if you're thinking about buying from other people, because look, we're retailers. We want you to trust what we sell as authentic, and it's a tricky thing. Because as you know, Dana, we've had lots of conversations about this. For a long time, you used photo proof, exact proof, as a way of guaranteeing that something was real. But with a little bit of logic, sure. with a little bit of magic, and a little bit of trickery, and a little bit of shenanigans, photo proof can easily be faked. Or you can use the same proof photo for 100 items, and there's no way to really know.
Yeah. And the way it works better for us is 95% of the prints and stuff we get signed are edits I create, edits that only we have. No one else is printing these edits. So if you see the person with my edit in front of them, I think it's a little more foolproof. But at the same time, figures, Funkos, that's, someone could steal that picture from me and then put that on their own page with fakes.
Yeah, so look, for us, for some signings, it's just not worth it. The margin of profit is not high enough for us to pay a third-party authenticator for their sticker. It's just not worth it. We're cutting into our margins there. So, what we do, we have that marked out tablecloth. If you've seen any of our pictures, we use that tablecloth, and we have our guests sitting at that tablecloth, so you know that we met them. We'll post pictures of ourselves with the guest. Dana has his own prints and his own images that he creates, and so if you see someone signing those images, they came from us. And then a lot of it is we rely on our reputation, the fact that we've been doing this for decades, which is kind of awkward to say out loud, decades, but we have. Yeah. And we rely on our reputation, that it's just not worth selling fake autographs to make a couple extra dollars, and in the grand scheme of things, you lose the trust of everyone you ever worked with. Look, there are plenty of people who are operating in the same space that we do, who rely on kind of the same proofs that we have, who are slipping fakes into the marketplace. And it sucks working alongside them, and it sucks having to deal with them. And to some degree, TPAs do play a role here. And that's why a lot of people in our position, for our signings, we're pretty open. If we sell you something and it fails a third-party authentication, we'll take it back. I don't want to be. Our stuff doesn't fail. It doesn't, because our sit-down stuff looks amazing. But that's the thing, that if you want to get it third-party authenticated, you got to pay. That's on you. But I'm not going to pay. On a if for example, we had a signing with Bret Hart. On Dana's original edits, those Bret Hart things. I'm not giving JSA money just for the hell of it. I'm not doing that. So,
no one else will ever have that print. And if our reputation and our exclusive print with the proof shot isn't enough, well then
go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And let's say, and if you want to buy it, then you want to pay PSA $20 or JSA $20 to knock yourself out. Do that.
Yeah.
For us, it doesn't pay.
No.
But that being said, if you're buying from a dealer who is not willing to put their money where their mouth is, because look, I understand why dealers don't get certain things stickered, but I also know if there are certain names out there, there are certain signatures that I won't sell unstickered, right? So, for example, if I somehow fell into a pile of, give me a name, Ultimate Warriors is a good one, right? So an Ultimate Warrior, if I fell into a pile of Ultimate Warrior autographs, Warrior's been dead a couple of years now, decent number of years. The amount of stuff of his on the marketplace is starting to dry up. If I was going to a garage sale and I found a box of Ultimate Warrior autographs, I'm getting them stickered. I'm getting them checked out. Even though I have a good eye, a decent eye for what an authentic Warrior looks like, there are certain people, because of the value, you get them stickered. And so
you don't want to play a game on something like that you didn't witness.
And so you have to be very careful. If you're in the you're on the market for something, and it's something someone who has a rare autograph, a British Bulldog or a Randy Savage, or even in this collecting world, a Mickey Mantle or a Heath Ledger, right? You'd better have a TPA look at it. That's not to say that if a TPA looked at it and passed it, that means it's 100% good. There's a mantra online: buy the autograph, not the sticker, right? And really, anyone who's shopping for an autograph should educate themselves on what real autographs look like of a given person. Dana and I can both attest. It is not, when you start looking and really understanding what a signature looks like and knowing what to look for, it is not hard to tell when fakes from real.
Yeah. When you see enough of them, it's just doesn't take very long to make your decision.
My favorite is looking for Hulk Hogan fakes. We've had some fun with those because Hulk Hogan is an interesting one in that he signs so much, you shouldn't see any fakes from him. He was so friendly for so long. There's a million out there. He sells them on his website. You shouldn't see any fakes. But years ago, when he used to get he used to get so much fan mail. His wife at the time, Linda, would sign his fan mail and send it out. And there's a joke in wrestling collectors: you can tell a Linda signed Hulk Hogan from a Hulk signed Hulk Hogan that her signatures looked a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's always funny when you have someone come online, come into one of the groups, and usually Facebook groups, and they're like selling, I guarantee this Hulk Hogan is real. I got it done myself. And it's an obvious Linda. And we know it. We as collectors, we know what a Linda looks like. And so it's a joke. We know what the Lindas look like. And so we know the person's lying on their story. And so, that's a good one like that. And there are other ones, you see them all the time. That the more educated, and I believe that if you truly are a part of a hobby, you should try and educate as much as you educate yourself as much as you can about what you're buying. I would never drop a lot of money unless I was pretty sure what I was getting. Yeah,
you want to minimize how much trust you're putting in someone else's word of what they're telling you. Have a third party back something up if it's valuable and you think it's real and you want that assurance. But if you have no clue and you're just going to blindly just trust this voice telling you it's real, I could not put my money on that.
And what's actually kind of funny is you can actually find really, really good deals of stuff that hasn't been authenticated by a TPA, but it's real because you know what to look for. So a couple of years ago, I was on the hunt for a nice Bryan Cranston. Because Bryan Cranston, he's the nicest guy ever, but he's basically stopped signing autographs because he was getting followed nonstop, and his autograph is worth a lot now. I mean, he's had multiple hit shows. He's pretty much Hollywood royalty at this point. And so I remember I found on eBay a Christmas card that the cast of Malcolm in the Middle sent out to, I guess, the production staff and their families. And so it was not TPA'd, but it was very clearly real. I knew what to look for. I knew what a real Cranston looked like. I knew what a real Frankie Muniz looked like. And I'm like, okay, this is real, but it wasn't stickered, and so I got it pretty damn cheap. This Christmas. It's actually a funny Malcolm in the Middle Christmas card signed by the whole cast. That I want to say under $100 for the whole cast, and a Bryan Cranston autograph now on its own is several $100s.
Yeah.
So it's just the thing where if you know what to look for, you know what to look for.
And a similar story, there was a guy on eBay that I've known him. I'm not going to name names, but he's a city street grapher. He's reputable. And this was like right around COVID, and like prices hadn't really gone up yet. And I stumbled on his eBay store, and all of it was unstickered at the time. He has since moved on to having everything authenticated, and his pricing is more like what you would expect. But I bought a couple like original Merchant of Venice Broadway posters signed by Al Pacino for like, I don't know, like maybe $80-90 each. One has like a full sit down signature. One's his usual Rush signature. I got other various pieces that like now if I authenticated them and sold them, they'd be probably 5 times what I paid. And it's all if you know what you're looking for, you trust the source and know what you're looking for, that's even better. You can find deals without the sticker, but it's not an easy thing for someone that doesn't have that knowledge or that education about what to look for.
Yeah, it speaks to that, like everything else in life. In this hobby, third-party authenticators are a tool, a very, very useful tool, and you can use them to inform your purchasing decisions. You can use them as a tool to market your own products if you're looking to sell them, but they are not the be-all and end-all. And when you see the people on these groups who refuse to buy anything without a sticker, or worse, are unwilling to examine the authenticity of things that are unstickered, or are stickered rather. It's like there are people who they post fake stickered things. The TPAs make mistakes. We've seen obvious fakes that have been stickered. And sometimes it's the case where the sticker itself is forged, which happens once in a while. But sometimes you have people posting fake stickered items, and there are people who fight to the death. They argue so vehemently that, oh, no, this is PSA said it's okay, therefore it's okay. And it's maddening. It's very frustrating because the answer is always use the TPA as a tool, but ultimately know what you're talking about. This is not brain surgery, okay? Are there some fakes that are better than others? Damn Skippy. There have been times where, Dana and I have looked at, we've, texted pictures we found on eBay or on Facebook, and we're like, is this real or not? I'm like, damn, we're not sure. It's close.
Yeah.
I'm
not going to name names. I'm not going to name names because, like, honestly, 10 years ago, I'll be fully honest. 10 years ago, I would be on here right now naming this one and that one, and they're selling fakes. There's no money in that, and there's also, you're not going to change people's opinions. The people that will believe you already know it. The people that buy from those people that don't know it are not going to believe you. They'll just say you're jealous and you're hating on them.
Well, there's a thing where now if you have a whole collection got acquired from this vendor who is selling nothing but fakes, if you find out that they sell fakes, then you feel like a fool. And so you see it so often. There have been threads where we are 100% certain that a vendor is selling fakes. We know for a fact. We know it. And there are people, and they get called out on it, and there are people defending them aggressively. It's like, who has the energy to argue? You know? There are certain groups, there are certain people who are more trustworthy than others. We became RAC, a real autograph collecting community, verified. We're verified seller status. We took that step because that, I think, is a program that's really effective at keeping trustworthy autograph sellers in one spot. It's a really select group. I've gone through the other sellers. It's really like a who's who of people you can trust. It was important to be a part of that. Yeah, I would never and it's so funny because there are people who have they have such a personal stake in making sure their own stuff is regarded as real, and so they ignore the clear signs when something isn't. And so groups like RAC, on Facebook they're so instrumental in keeping the hobby honest. I mean, it's funny because a lot of the stories that we talk about where major authenticity scandals came from RAC. A lot of them actually come from their lead authenticator, one of the admins of RAC, Justin Steffman, who he owns. In the interest of full disclosure, he owns one of the TPAs, ACOA, but he has personally uncovered a bunch of authentication scandals involving other TPAs or involving celebrities who were sending out fakes in the past, and they were claiming them to be real. And so there's communities like that who are willing to just say no, and even in the face of big money opposition, say no, this is not real. You need to do something about this. Is really important in this hobby. Without really paying attention to authentication, this hobby essentially has no meaning. That's my opinion.
Agreed.
It's funny though, because I've seen people put pictures up. They say, "I'm not sure if this is authentic," and then people say it's not. Then the people get all upset that it's not, and they you guys don't, you're not experts. I'll send it to PSA, and I say, "All right, send it to PSA." But the truth of it is that the third party authenticators, PSA, Beckett, and the rest of them, JSA, they're pretty good. They're pretty accurate. Now the question is, are you okay with pretty accurate? Is that good enough to your standards? And that's
when you have, like, to me, in a perfect world, if a sticker is completely just infallible, unblemished, it's always right, it's a constant. Sure, whatever, that's great. But when you have instances where all the companies have had mistakes and scandals and this and that, it makes you wonder and makes you realize that if you don't have any knowledge yourself, if you're not actually educating yourself, if you're just buying the sticker and not the autograph, you are never going to be 100% safe unless you get it signed yourself right in front of you.
And that's what it boils down to. In an ideal world, we collect what we got signed right in front of our faces. But the truth of it is, Babe Ruth is dead. Mickey Mantle is dead. Will Chamberlain is dead. Walt Disney is dead. Abraham Lincoln is dead.
Carrie Fisher's dead.
Carrie Fisher is dead. Tupac Shakur is dead. Heath Ledger is dead. If you want these people's autographs, you have to some degree rely on the expertise of yourself and professionals in the field to make determinations that that's something that you should buy. And so that's pretty much all I have to say about that. You got any last words about TPA?
No, I think that covered it pretty well.
So in that case, we do ask that you please hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to this, whether it's on Substack. If you click the link on Facebook and you're on Substack, hit the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast, hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a lot. Also, if you're on Apple Podcast or you're on Apple Podcast, leave us a review or leave us a rating. We so far we're at 5 stars. We're grateful, but obviously keeping that volume up is important. Leave a review on Spotify. We're also on 5 stars. Again, leave us a review or a rating on YouTube. Leave us comments on our individual episodes. Those are the things that help to drive us up in the algorithm, help people get exposed to, and hopefully join in on the fun. Again, if you want to ask us any questions, if you want to have your topic or your ideas read on the air, you can email markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com. You can leave comments on YouTube, or you can leave leave comments in the threads on the Marked Out Collectibles official Facebook group. So again, to reiterate, if you're shopping for autographs, please check out markedoutcollectibles.com or our eBay store. It's Marked Out Collectibles, and the new link will be in the bio on Substack. To contact us for any reason, again, markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com. Quickly, we have a couple of private signings coming up. It's the same ones that we've had for the past few weeks. This is right now it's busy con season, so typically we kind of pull back from our own stuff, but we may have a couple more things for the November and December being announced soon. So right now we have Barbara Bain, TV legend, icon, 92-year-old classic star. All items and orders are due October 23rd for her. And we have WWE Hall of Famer, ECW co-founder Paul Heyman. All items and orders due November 7th. So that's it for TPA, our discussion of authenticity. And of course, our discussion for authenticity will continue as we broach topics where it's required. I know it's a controversial topic, so if you're the kind of person who it has things to say about authenticity. If you have strong feelings about it, please reach out. So with that said, for Marked Out Radio, Marked Out Collectibles, markedout.com, I am Sean.
And I'm Dana.
And we will see you next week.